David. Excited to be here. I'm also on, as you mentioned, I'm on our national board at SABR, so really appreciative of all each chapter, especially this chapter, what you've been doing. When they reached out to me about coming here today, obviously today being significant, being MLK Day, just kind of went down a rabbit hole when it came to looking at the life of Dr. King and also just how that connection with Jackie Robinson and just being able to kind of see that. Next slide.
Okay.
Make it interactive just for a second. Jackie Robinson. Let me get somebody, a volunteer. What comes to mind when you immediately think about Jackie Robinson?
Courage.
Courage. Yep. Using that speed. Let me get one more person on Jackie. Legend. Okay. Also about Dr. King. Let me get somebody also. What comes to mind when you think about Dr. King? Yeah, I have a dream. Go ahead, sir. Yeah. One thing when I looked at this was not knowing fully just the link between the two of them. And that's what I really wanted to touch base on, understanding how the two of them each led in their own individual ways. And in some cases it was each different. Looking at what Jackie had to go through, breaking the color barrier in our game, and everything he had to do, he did it in his way. Obviously with the whole weight of so much was on him to come into our game, and also making sure Branch Rickey, when he talked to him, hey, you can't lash out at somebody. You have to maintain that quiet confidence about yourself, and then also just being resilient and understanding that. And then next slide, looking at Jackie and looking at Dr. King, and obviously what he was preaching as he went about his life and how he did things in a non-violent way. Dr. King is a quote that he mentioned. It says, "You'll never know how easy you and Jackie and Dobie and Campy made it for me to do my job by what you did on the baseball field." Understanding, how they had to go about behaving, how they went about acting with interacting with people, how they were as teammates, people that were around them, how they were able to socialize within our world and dealing with everything. Next slide. Just understanding that element. Dr. King and Jackie Robinson, they had their first meeting in 1949. At the time, the Dodgers were about to have a spring training exhibition game in Atlanta. And at the time, they were about to go ahead and have this, but then at the time, there was also threats that were made to both Jackie and to Roy Campanella. And obviously, understanding what Jackie had already went through previously, now this was something that was coming up as they were making their way north. And at the time, Branch Rickey ended up reaching out to Dr. King. And can you please talk to both these guys? Obviously, the seriousness of these threats. And at the time, they got a chance to connect with Dr. King in Atlanta. He wanted to meet with them. And it was something that for him, it was important that they kind of let them know, hey, you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And really, Dr. King's quote, he said, "Don't worry about these threats. You can carry on just as you've been doing." Knowing that, and obviously we look at Dr. King's life and how much he had to deal with different threats throughout his entire life. But in this case, he confronted this whole situation with them and also comforted those two guys to let them know it was going to be okay. Next slide. This picture these two pictures here, the one on the right is significant. In 1957, Howard University was having their commencement. And at this time, Dr. King and Jackie both came together. They're both there to get honorary degrees from Howard University. And during this time, they had a chance to connect further and talk. And during this time, as you were going forward, Dr. King was really talking to Jackie, because Jackie at this point had retired. He's like, you know what? We would love to have you do more as far as understanding, being a part of the civil rights movement. Next slide. And with that, it was a case of they eventually had a chance to connect further with different protests, different opportunities, getting a chance to be there together, but also being able to, one, Dr. King trusted Jackie Robinson as far as his advice. And that was something they continued to have a chance to interact over a number of years. And King really became to rely upon it. There's a quote, he says, 1962, King, he actually praised Jackie Robinson. He said, "You have made every Negro in America proud through your baseball prowess and your inflexible demand for equal opportunity for all." And understanding that the two of them ended up having this opportunity to be in different parts, including the March on Washington. They were together there. Literally, Jackie Robinson was just a few feet away from Dr. King when he made his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And with the two of them having that opportunity to continue to be there with each other and also understanding what they each had to go through, it's just pretty special to understand it. Next slide. You know, Dr. King, he's obviously outside of what we talked about with Jackie Robinson, he also had a connection with a lot of other players that he had some involvement with, either in their life or also just having a friendship that was developed. A couple examples here. Don Clendenin. You know, Don obviously with the World Series with the Mets, but obviously signing with the Pirates. He actually is from Atlanta, Georgia, went to Morehouse College, which is where Dr. King also is an alum. At the time when Don Clendenin was entering Morehouse College as a freshman, Morehouse had a program where they would have freshmen get a mentor assigned to them who would be normally a junior or a senior. Well, Dr. King and his family knew the Clendenin family and had a history. So Dr. King and the university granted a special opportunity for Dr. King to be a mentor to Don Clendenin. So they ended up having a great relationship as he continued to play throughout the major leagues, being connected with each other. Also, Dr. King being a mentor throughout his career, and then also he was also someone who was a voice that Dr. King could talk to about different things, about what he was going through, but because of that connection they had together. Also, Don Newcomb. Don Newcomb, someone there in the bottom left. Don Newcomb also, obviously with him coming up through the Dodgers, there obviously with Jackie Robinson as well, that they built a relationship along the way. Dr. King actually would frequently end up having dinner with Don Newcomb and his family. And it was something they continued to stay connected over the years and also talked regularly and had that connection with each other. Also, as I was going through this learning further, I realized that Roberto Clemente and Dr. King also had built a friendship. Something that Dr. King actually, during one of his trips where he had to go, he went to Puerto Rico, they ended up having dinner together. And during that, they got to understand each other. And also, Dr. King was also just appreciative of how, you know, he could see how the courage that even Roberto Clemente had, also how proud Roberto Clemente was, understanding his background as a Latino, but also identifying as black as well. So them having that relationship was pretty important, something that continued through, until Dr. King's unfortunate passing. The city of Atlanta, Hank Aaron, obviously very synonymous. And once Dr. King and Hank Aaron, they first met very early on once the Braves moved from Milwaukee to Atlanta. During that time, you know, they didn't have a ton of interaction with each other over the course of their, like, really maybe like one time physically. They were truly together. But there was such an appreciation between the two of them, understanding first and foremost, King really respected how Hank Aaron was able to bring people from all races together watching him play. And he loved how he could see how, hey, what you're doing as a player is helping the city of Atlanta, helping to bring people together, even though so much had been going on in the background as far as segregation, but also just in terms of things in Atlanta itself. The two of them coming together, having a chance to connect further, was something that's very critical. Also, as part of that, later on, I'll talk about it, but Dr. King's, Hank Aaron's, his wife, unfortunately, she was there when everything happened with Dr. King later on, which I'll talk about, his assassination. There was a case where Hank Aaron's wife, who he married later on after Dr. King's passing, she was actually physically in Atlanta with a whole bunch was going on during that time period. the death of Dr. King. You know, obviously this is a moment in America's history, April 4th, 1968, that we all remember. I mean, a lot of you, some in this room probably know exactly where you were on that day when that unfortunate passing happened. You know, back in Memphis, Tennessee. You know, looking at the timing of it, opening day was literally 4 days away, and as the season was getting ready to start, you know, and obviously you look at that time, about 15% of the population in the game at that time was African American, which is, at that time, obviously a lot of players had concerns about trying to go ahead and play. Obviously there was a lot going on in our country, you know, riots happening in a lot of major cities throughout. And the players were really, a lot of the black players were really, hey, we got to find a way to make sure we salute and honor Dr. King. And at the time, unfortunately, there was a lot of, sort of confusion as far as how to go about doing that. And eventually, it came about where the first 2 games of that season were postponed. But with that, there was still a lot that went on during that time as far as how do we go about doing that. And it was more on a team basis, kind of deciding how they were going to do it. Eventually, they finally decided to go ahead and make sure to postpone those first 2 games. But you look at one thing that happened as a result of this, the Dodgers, they made a commitment to, hey, we're going to go ahead and create a charity game that'll happen at some point to honor Dr. King and also remember his word. Next slide. So in 1970, March 28th, 1970 to be exact, the Dodgers ended up hosting an East-West Major League Baseball Classic, which was held at Dodger Stadium. Over $30,000 were raised at the time for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which is an organization that's founded by Dr. King. In his honor, this money was raised to go there. Also, over 30,000 fans were in attendance for this game. And you know, think about this as far as the timing of doing something like this, having this event is important. But also, that game actually featured 15 future Hall of Famers. The teams were managed by Joe DiMaggio, Roy Campanella, and you look at some of the names: Ernie Banks, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Johnny Bench, Bob Gibson, Lou Brock, Roberto Clemente, Reggie Jackson, Tom Seaver, just to name a few that were part of this actual game. But having them have an opportunity to, just to remember Dr. King, Coretta Scott King actually threw out the first pitch for the game as well. Just a way to remember him, just him coming together in the aftermath of his passing is something that's very notable. Jackie Robinson, who had kind of been sort of off to the side really when it came to the Dodgers after he finished playing, he actually was in attendance there at that game as well to pay his respects for Dr. King. Next slide. These 4 photos here, I just want to, as I conclude, just kind of look at the work that Dr. King did, but then you remember he was also a family man, and his children that he had, you know, and this photo just kind of says it all when we look at how this game is passed down from from one generation to the next. And him with his son Martin Luther King III, his daughter Yolanda, them being right there in the backyard, you know, just shows you just how we've got to continue that aspect of this game being passed down from one generation to the next. And it's unfortunate we have a lot of situations where families have broken down, where that doesn't always happen, having that game passed down. I'm honored. My dad is here today. Dad, thank you for being here. Sorry to get a little emotional, but you know, the game was passed down to me thanks to him. And you know, going to Memorial Stadium back when I was 5 years old for the first time and seeing a major league stadium, and also looking around the field when I could see players that looked like myself was important. You know, when I saw Ken Singleton, Eddie Murray, Al Bunbury, seeing those guys, that meant something to me as a kid, and that helped spur my interest in the game. And now here I am, 30 years later, still being a part of the game of baseball, thanks to, you know, that love of the game that was started and developed at that time as a kid. You know, them in the backyard. I remember my brother and myself and my dad being in the backyard playing, and just that importance that why we continue to do is make sure the game is continuing to be shared and passed down. Having a chance to, my first 20 years in the game, I broke in with as I was mentioning earlier, with the Atlanta Braves, having a chance to get started. During that time also, and that was thanks to a program that was developed by Hank Aaron. If it wasn't for him, I would not be here today, thanks to that program. And what he did, it created an opportunity for me and so many others. And I'm thankful for the time I had with Hank during his time here on earth, there being in Atlanta together with him. And we just got to continue to make sure individuals get access to this game. Later today, I have to speak at another event at 11 o'clock. There's an organization called BUBBA, Baltimore Urban Baseball Association. And there's kids in this city here in Baltimore that they're trying to make sure kids have access to the game. They can continue to play the game, love the game, be a part of it, both boys and girls. And that's why we just have to continue to make sure we're doing things to do that. For me, this journey has been pretty incredible to be able to be a part of something really bigger than myself. My role in MLB these last 10 years, and my first 20 years at a club, these last 10 years have been great as far as helping people to come into opportunities, and some that may not even knew what a career in baseball can look like. And just being a part of SABR has been just an amazing experience. Also partnering closely with SABR at MLB, the upcoming SABR Analytics Conference, which will be taking place later in February. The last 10 plus years, I've been involved in helping bring people to that conference so they understand further about analytics and being part of things in our game and how it's being used. And again, thank you for so much of you do here at this chapter and doing so much. So really, really excited thank you for all that you've been able to do here with this chapter and continue to bring our game together for everyone, and also just to turn the growth. Talking about the East-West one that they do, or the? Oh, the Civil Rights game? Yeah, I'm not sure if that will ever really happen again. As far as I'm not really sure. I know they've continued to have an East-West, basically makes the East-West Classic, which they've been doing now in Birmingham. That'll take place on Juneteenth, there on June 19th. So it's scheduled to happen again this year. They did it last year. They're planning to do it again this upcoming year, where they'll be wearing Negro League uniforms, honoring the greats that played in the Negro Leagues. So that's going to happen, continue. So I'm glad that they're continuing. That's a lot of the Players Alliance is part of that, doing that. Some MLB involvement, but predominantly there with the Players Alliance. Sure. But no, I just want to thank y'all for giving me the floor, giving me a little time here, and just appreciate having a chance to be here to connect with you. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. There's a lot of great speakers here, so thank you so much.